Hello guys, this is your friend Uzumkai Universe 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto lost everything on his 6th birthday, earned Kurama's trust, and was adopted by Kakashi Part 2? 3 more steps. 2 more steps. 1 more ga. An explosion had cut off my train of thought. Scaling the trees in the forest of death wouldn't normally be this dangerous. But due to the training regime, courtesy of Sasuke, it had become downright lethal. The objective was to climb the tree successfully while avoiding death. You see, Sasuke had taken a knack to genjutsu and had decided to practice the art upon me. If I had known he would be layering genjutsu upon exploding tags beforehand, I would have surely declined. I can't lie though, this exercise was proving results for Tem. After free falling for about 2 seconds, I had flipped my body in the air, planting 2 kunais into the bark of a tree to break my movement in the air. After slowing down for 2 seconds, I kicked myself off and landed in a perfect crouch right next to my dear old friend. Ha, you're gonna have to do better than that to catch me with those illusions. Sasuke scoffed as he brushed off my jab. Of course, I haven't revealed that I'm a censor to Sasuke yet, but god damn it, I need some secrets for myself. I'll let him inside the loop one day. You're just like a roach, impossible to get rid of. After sharing a round of laughter, we had walked over to the clearing adjacent to us. Kakashi had been running Gaara to the ground with conditioning exercises. Currently, the poor Jinchuruki was completing a set of push-ups in the beaming hot sun. A waterfall of salty sweat was dripping off his silver hair. Hey Tem, I've been wondering what's up with your pursuit of genjutsu all of a sudden. Without missing a beat, Sasuke's Sharingan had flared to life. After snooping around to find information about him, I found out that he was a prodigy in genjutsu. Naruto, I have to beat him in his own game, don't you understand? Ah yes, Itachi, it has now been 2 days after that tragic incident. Getting Sasuke to open up on the first day had been quite difficult, but he eventually came around thanks to my Uzumaki charm. Reaching to our destination, Kakashi had greeted us with his usual eye smile. Sasuke, Naruto, looks like you guys finally want to join us for training I wonder what's the special occasion. Kakashi's playful banter mixed with his condescending tone had never failed to get on my nerves. But I knew he never held any malice, so it was bearable in the end. Whatever. So what's the plan for today? Join Gaara over here and complete 300 push-ups. After that you will complete 20 laps around this clearing. Without another word, we proceeded to carry out his instructions. It was quite early in the morning, so this exercise should be completed by noon. Our drive to get stronger should help us pass by time. 000. And that makes 3 laps. I exclaimed loudly as I squatted in place, placing my hands upon my knees. The sun was now smack dab in the middle of the sky. Sasuke finished second as he fell down the ground, exasperated due to constant running. I guess to him this torture was necessary for his goal, since he hadn't uttered not one word throughout the whole course. Finally, Gaara came lagging behind in last place. His tan shirt was drenched in sweat, our Konoha leaf proudly imprinted on the front had become glossy. His shaking legs had finally given out as he also fell to the ground. As if Gaara's imbalance was Kakashi's cue, he had appeared using Shunshin. An ability that I will soon add to my arsenal if I could only get used to the tunnel vision. I see you all have finished the laps, good job. But it seems I have been assigned to a mission. So Naruto, Gaara, I'll see you at home. Sasuke, take care. Yane. With a wave goodbye, he was gone just like that. I could never follow his movements, but I bet Sasuke could with his incredibly unfair dojutsu. Speaking of dojutsu, I had finally come to a conclusion on what exactly happened on that night. Itachi had to have been on a mission. It's the only explanation that makes sense. The Anbu was absent for the whole incident. The Hokage also never tried to detain the missing nin either. Finally, why would the man cry after sparing Sasuke? claiming that the massacre was a mission delivered by the Hokage himself would answer all of these questions in one go. But my speculation would be just that, speculation if I didn't question the Hokage myself. A part of me secretly hopes that my theory isn't correct. You guys can go ahead, I need to perfect my fire release. Without another word, Sasuke walked to the other side of the clearing where an abundance of trees were awaiting to be turned into charcoal. Sometimes I worry about Sasuke throwing himself head first into training all the time. I guess it's his way to cope with everything. Well, shall we go home, Naruto? Gaara inquired with his usual monotone voice. I have other plans, but I'll race you back to Konoha. You're on. 000. Jiraiya, the gallant one of the prominent members of the legendary Sannin, was currently on his way to meet with the Hokage. After receiving a scroll that relayed an urgent return notice signed by Hiruzen himself, he had no time to dilly-dally. That's why he was gliding through Konoha, hopping from building to building. If he was anybody else, the Anbu would have surely been on his tail by now. But that's one of the perks of being labeled as a Sannin, immunity to protocol. The man had finally arrived at the cage tower without even breaking a sweat. Scaling the building to go through his signature entrance, the window. Much to his sensei displeasure, of course, if the look of ire he had greeted him with was any clue. But it was soon replaced with his grandfatherly gaze he was commonly known for. Sensei, it's been a while since I have been inside the village. Everything is going fine, I presume. Jiraiya's jovial tone had brought a smile to Hiruzen's face. Jiraiya-kun, it is always a pleasure getting visits from one of my students, even if most of them forget an old man like me. Student and teacher talks like these always erected a peaceful setting between the two. But alas, all good things must come to an end, as Hiruzen hastily created a privacy seal. Jiraiya, I'm recalling you from the field. Why? What about my espionage branch? Do we not need information anymore? Jiraiya-kun, I'm sure you could run your spy network from within the walls of Konoha. There's a threat looming over our village. I suspect a war in the upcoming 3 years. Jiraiya's eye had widened at that spill of information. War had been the last of his suspicions. War? Are you sure, sensei? You see, 3 months ago, Junin Kakashi Hatake had been assigned a diplomatic mission in Sunagaku. He was tasked with renewing our treaty with the Kazekage. He succeeded but brought back a stray. A stray? Who could Hatake possibly bring back that would ignite a war? He returned with the Kazekage's youngest child. Before Hiruzen could finish his ludicrous statement, Jiraiya had cut him off. What? Jiraiya slammed both of his hands upon the cage's desk. It was obvious the news had disgruntled the Sannin. Let me finish. Now, not only does the child contain cage blood, but he is also the Ikibi Jinchuriki. What was Hatake thinking, and why is he not in prison for such incompetence? Jiraiya had crossed his arms as he eased up upon Hiruzen's desk. According to him, it wasn't his decision but that of your neglected godson. The Sannin had no reply to that, as he just stared ahead with a look of confusion and guilt. That mission had to at least be A-rank, sensei. How could you let him out of the village so early? I trust Hatake's ability to babysit Jiraiya-kun. The good news is that Suna believes that their container had died that night. But in the 3 years that farce could only hold for so long. And all the strings lead back to Konoha. What did you do with the boy? The boy has a name, Gaara is what they call him. I admissioned him into the academy, he will do good for the village. As to the reason why I recalled you from the field is that I need you to bring Tsunade back. I'm certain that you know of her whereabouts. Jiraiya snorted as he rolled his eyes. Convincing Tsunade to fight for the village again. We need a miracle for that, sensei. The sound of dull stomps and banging in the hallways outside of the door distracted the pair. Muffled complaints from the secretary soon followed. Hey, what are you doing? I told you Hokage-sama is currently in a meeting. The door opened as a child with red hair with mixed streaks of orange had barged inside the room, making himself known. It had seemed that Naruto wanted to ask a question, if his raised index finger was any indication towards that. But the child's actions had been put to a halt by Jiraiya's presence. After sharing a look between Naruto and Hiruzen, an idea had popped into the Sanin's head. I request to bring the brat with me. Leaning back into his chair, Hiruzen had released his tobacco smoke. I don't see why not. If a Sanin couldn't protect a 6-year-old, then they should be stripped of the damn title. Sweet, I'm going on another mission. Naruto jumped with joy, going alone with the situation he suddenly found himself in. Looks like I have to ask Gigi later. Great. You bet, kid. Adventures with me, the great Jiraiya, are worth a lifetime. Naruto had suddenly found Jiraiya's arm around his shoulder. Raising his scarred eyebrow, Naruto had glanced at the man. You are Jiraiya the Gallant, Master of Seals, Konoha's legendary toad sage? Naruto questioned with wide eyes as he raised his voice to display excitement. Also your godfather. One problem at a time, Kurama. The one and only kid. Jiraiya had pointed to himself with his thumb. His teeth sparkled as he grinned. It had taken all of Naruto's strength to quell his face into his professional blank stare. In class we recently learned about the Sanin and their heroic feats. I must say you're quite disappointing in real life. Jiraiya comically fell to the floor as a hearty laugh came from the peanut gallery. Hiruzen. As quick as he fell, he had risen even faster. Come on, kid, I'll show you the ropes of being a legendary ninja. Maybe then I can impress the critique. Jiraiya grabbed Naruto as he substituted out of the Hokage's office, leaving Hiruzen to himself. Somehow his paperwork had managed to double in height throughout the conversation. 000. Crack crack thump, crack crack thump. Sasuke had been going through his katas with non-stop vigor. Only ever taking a break to rewrap bandages around his fists and arms. The pearly white bandages had been stained a brick-colored red due to the constant reopening of the wounds across the child's knuckles. Vengeance had been a really good motivational drive for the last Uchiha. But it had also given the academy student tunnel vision, as he had not noticed the humanoid figure stalking him from a branch above. The creature had a yin and yang mixture to it, with green hair on the top of his head to complete the monster. The man was stuck inside a Venus flytrap plant as he donned a black robe littered with red clouds printed on it. Said spy had been surveilling Sasuke for a good hour. He had been impressed by his dauntless dedication. He would be a good challenge for Madara, don't you think? The white half had spoken in a childlike manner, somehow keeping quiet enough to not alert Sasuke. The white half had been entranced by the rhythmic punches and kicks orchestrated by the Uchiha. The black half had stayed silent as he just merely observed. You're still planning on handing him the scroll, right? The black half had then retrieved a scroll from their garb. Zetsu, you talk too much. Now let us start my experiment. Sinking into the tree, the now named entity, Zetsu, had then sprouted from the ground right behind Sasuke. All without even making a sound. Nice form you got there. White Zetsu's jolly voice startled Sasuke as he hopped away from the pair. A drawn kunai for defense had glinted in the grasps of his shaking hand. Who are you? At Sasuke's questioning, Black Zetsu decided to take initiative of this conversation. Who we are or where we are from has no relevance as to why we are here, child. What is important is that we know what you want, power. Sasuke had been gradually lowering his kunai throughout Zetsu's explanation. Black Zetsu then threw the scroll at Sasuke's feet. Said Uchiha proceeded to snatch the scroll, never taking his eyes off of Zetsu. Inside that scroll lay the contents of katas and instructions to replicate the legendary taijutsu style that was once used by Madara Uchiha. Sasuke had opened the scroll and true to its word it contained katas for a taijutsu style. How did you even get this? Sasuke wouldn't get an answer because as soon as he looked up he was once again alone. Activating his Sharingan, he had quickly studied the scroll. If this gift was to help him get stronger, then no way in hell would he decline it. He knew that defeating Itachi would be in no way an easy task. Sasuke would need all the help he could get to accomplish his goal. But the Uchiha had surveyed the clearing one last time before he hopped back into training. That monster could have easily ended his life there if he had wanted to, and that is an opportunity Sasuke refuses to allow to happen again. 000. So Brad, you got all your stuff ready. This mission might last longer than a week depending on how fast Tsunade wants to escape from her debts. A nomad like her can probably skip cities overnight. Naruto responded by showing off a storage scroll. Good, now let's head over to Tanzaku-gai. There should be an annual parade around this time of year. It's a real hot spot for gamblers, so that's the best place, so search for Tsunade. What does gambling have to do with Tsunade? Jiraiya had chuckled at Naruto's question. It will all make sense once you see her, brat. With that, Jiraiya had shot into the trees, making sure to slow his pace down so Naruto could keep up. Said blonde had dismissed his earlier statement, still in awe at the fact that he was on a mission with a Sannin. Don't praise the pervert too much. How come, furball? The man spends his better time peeking upon women in hot springs, not really all that impressive. So you're saying he is addicted to being a pervert? In a way, yes. Makes sense. Most powerful figures in his league adopt crutches to keep them sane. Like how Gigi smokes his tobacco. When a man goes through 3 wars, it would be concerning if he didn't have a vice. You should ask that mortal about your father. He must have information upon the man. I can only tell you so much. Good idea. Oi Jiraiya. The Sannin acknowledged Naruto with a glance as they leapt from branch to branch. In the books they claim that you taught the 4th Hokage, is that true? Jiraiya had looked ahead as a fond smile wormed its way onto his features. It's as if the man was overcome by a delightful memory. But if one were to take a second look, they would see a bit of pain dancing in his eyes. Minato was my #1 prized student. I watched him transform from a snot-nosed genin to a brave man. The somber moment had come to an end as Jiraiya quickly switched back into his usual carefree attitude. Is he your hero or something? Yeah, the 4th Hokage is my idol. I even picked up sealing because of him. Naruto finished by revealing his incomplete storage seal. Jiraiya had raised his eyebrow as he peered at the project. For a novice so young, his work almost has no flaws. It isn't even complete yet, but this seal is so complicated no way a beginner could replicate one. Jiraiya had went into shock as a memory from the great toad sage Gamamaru came to fruition. Jiraiya boy, one day you will have a student with the power to save or destroy the world. It will be your actions that will determine which path your student takes. Could he be the prophecy child Gamamaru predicted? Tell you what, kid, I'll help you fix that storage seal while I tell you stories about Minato as a genin. Yada. Alright. 000. Danzo Shimura, elder to the Shinobi Council and advisor to the 3rd Hokage, had been taking a leisurely walk with Shibi Aburame, clan head of the Aburame clan. Not many words were shared between the two, as to be expected. Both adults were men of few words. I appreciate your sacrifice, Shibi. Root needs new soldiers, and with your assistance our foundation shall stay strong. It's not so much of a sacrifice but a trait of interest, Shimura-san. I fear that Shino's predicament might injure one of his peers in the future. I trust that you will train him well enough so that he can control his Rinkaichu. Worry not. Under my care Shino will learn how to control his Rinkaichu in due time. The duo had started to slow down as they had come across 2 children. Torun Aburame, an adopted son of Shibi. After his father died, Shibi had decided to open his doors to Torun. Then there was Shino Aburame, future clan heir. Shino, this is Danzo. He will help develop your control over the Rinkaichu. Danzo crouched down to maintain eye level with Shino. The war veteran had observed the Aburame with a blank stare. I've heard you have a rare ability, boy. I shall mend you into a fine shinobi for the village. Shino had glanced at his father, worried about the current situation. Shino, go along with Danzo. Joining the route would bring immense honor to our family. With a nod, Shino had bid goodbye to his adoptive brother. Torun had been slightly on edge about this transaction, but chose to not intervene. It wasn't his place for clan matters such as this. You will see Shino in a week from now. He'll still participate in the academy, maintaining daily attendance for clan hire appearances. After Danzo said his piece, he and Shino began to make their depart. Torun watched the duo escape as their silhouettes became dots on the horizon as time went by. For some reason, watching his brother leave with that man had left a sour taste in Torun's mouth. Shibi placed his hand upon the child's shoulder to catch his attention. This is the best option for Shino. Worry not for your brother, as he is now on a path to greatness. Shibi's explanation had put Torun at ease somewhat, hoping that this really was the best decision for Shino. 000. The bustling city of Tanzaku-gai had been quite lively today. Young women dressed in scantily clad kimonos and businessmen alike could be found in abundance throughout the streets. Currently we find our duo having lunch at a random pub by the select choice of Jiraiya. If Naruto were to take a guess as to why he chose this place, would probably be the endowed waitresses. Said blonde was chowing down his favorite dish as Jiraiya slowly ate his bowl of noodles. Emptying his bowl, Naruto pointed his chopstick at the older man. So Ero Sennin, what's the plan on finding Tsunade? Ero Sennin, have some respect, brat, you're talking to a hero here. You might be a hero, but you're still a perv. You can't even finish your bowl without gawking at the waitress every second. Books on anatomy at the academy had enlarged Naruto's vocabulary. A lecherous grin formed on Jiraiya's face as he was distracted by a cute redhead taking orders at a nearby table. But before the man could dish out his rebuttal, a green toad had came into existence with flashy smoke. Jiraiya-sama, I have spotted Tsunade in the far east side of the town. Currently she's in a bar drinking, accompanied by another woman with brown hair. The green toad was the size of a cup. He had seemed proud after reporting the spotting of Tsunade. Did that frog just talk? Naruto had been expecting a lot of things today, but a talking animal was not one of them. A slimy tongue had slapped the Jinchuriki with blinding speeds. I couldn't even react to it. Naruto had been left flabbergasted. An animal with reflexes on par with a ninja. It was such an enigma to the blonde. They are toads, Naruto, you should learn the difference. They're quite sensitive to that particular misconception. Thank you, Gorosen. Jiraiya flung a fish on a stick into the air. Said delicacy was snatched out of the air and gobbled into the toad's gullet via tongue. After that, the summon had vanished in a cloud of smoke, returning to Mount Myoboku. I have a summoning contract with toads. And he was one of my summons that I sent on a recon task. It's one of the perks of being so awesome. Ignoring Jiraiya's obvious flex, the child was still in awe at the prospect of summoning talking animals. But now we have a lead on my busty teammate, come on kid. In quick succession, Jiraiya grabbed Naruto and bolted out of the pub. Jumping on rooftop to the east side of the town. 000. Behind the Nara household, one could find Shikamaru Nara relaxing in his backyard. Shikaku, his father, had invited him outside, for today was the day he was finally going to teach his son the basics of their clan's signature jutsu. Shikamaru hadn't been too excited, but of course he was intrigued with the idea of learning a new jutsu. What academy student wouldn't be? Kujimane no Jutsu. Shikaku's shadow underneath him extended to connect with Shikamaru's. After successfully merging, Shikakau raised his hand, his son copying his exact movements. Shikamaru, this jutsu is our family's hidden jutsu, as you already know. After releasing his son's shadow, the man had approached the child. But before I even teach you the hand seals, we must first start with the basics. Shikamaru, will you explain to me exactly what yin chakra is? Moving from his spot, Shikamaru stood up as he addressed his father. Yin chakra, the opposite of yang chakra, is the physical energy that resides in all human beings. Shikaku smiled proudly. Correct. Now you see, yin chakra is what we apply to our shadows so that we can control it. Shikamaru, today you will find your yin energy. Now come on, sit down and meditate. At the end of his order, Shikamaru sat down upon the grassy field Indian style. Beginning his meditation, the Nara had searched within himself. First he felt his warm chakra near his stomach region. Separate your chakra into your physical energy, son. Listening to his father's advice, Shikamaru had done just that. After finally managing to find his yin chakra, what happened next surprised him. His yin chakra had felt powerful. It was on a whole nother compared to his regular chakra. It was an unstoppable force, yet easy to tame. Getting a feel of the ambiguous energy, Shikamaru had understood it like it was second nature. Applying said yin chakra to his shadow, he had successfully managed to mutate his shadow. Shikaku stared at the phenomenon with wide eyes. Did he just perform it on the first try? This is unprecedented. Such talent from our clan might be revolutionary. A deep frown had started to ma Shikaku's face. As the army general, the man had learned of the repeating pattern of those who earned the title of prodigy. Itachi Uchiha, the clan murder, Minato Namikaze, the honorable deceased 4th Hokage, and finally the infamous traitor Orochimaru of the Sannin. Each genius destined for a deficiency, Shikaku had not wanted his own son to follow the same beaten path. "San, is everything alright?" Shikamaru's question brung the senior out of his musings. The academy student had been worried. He had not expected his father to show such dissatisfaction. Quickly fixing his stature, Shikaku smiled fondly once again. "Good job, son, I'm proud of you." Approaching his child, he affectionately ruffled his hair. Shikamaru had nudged his father's hand off of his head, annoyed by his antics, but secretly relieved that he got his father's approval. 000. The duo had arrived at their destination, much to the blonde's ire. The child had swirls in his eyes as he was rudely dropped by Jiraiya. "Remember, kid, keep it professional. We're on a retrieval mission after all." Jiraiya sarcastically appraised Naruto as he dusted himself off. "Stupid sage manhandling me all over the village. A prank should teach this geezer a lesson." Naruto could almost hear his Biju laughing at his unfortunate predicament. Displacing the large blue flaps at the entrance of the bar, Jiraiya had peered inside the facility, instantly finding their target. A well-endowed blonde woman with pigtails guzzling down a bottle of sake, being barely restrained by a brunette who was failing miserably. "Tsunade-sama, please slow down on the drinking. I don't want to carry you back to our hotel again." A pink pig could be seen spectating at the sidelines, donned in a red coat with pearls as accessories. "Nay, Shizune, tonight is the night to party. Join me and have a drink." At the end of the blonde's gesture, she had thrusted her bottle into the air as if she was making a toast. Wow, Ero Sennin wasn't exaggerating when he called her a drunk, huh? Jiraiya had leapt towards Tsunade, tackling her with a hug and nestling his face between her. "Tsunade-chan. I'm so glad to see you." Tsunade had been caught off guard as she let out a gasp, muttering Jiraiya's name. But the woman must have been bipolar, as her positive nature had been switched with that of pure malice. "Get off me, you damn perv." Her words were followed by a swift but very powerful hook to the face, launching Jiraiya into nearby flimsy chairs. Said chairs had scattered about like pins getting rammed by a bowling ball. Naruto watched the spectacle with a large sweat drop forming upon his forehead. These people are Sannin, huh? But Kakashi's motto had replayed in his head. Look underneath the underneath. Yes, these people could still kill Naruto before he could even blink. Maybe the more powerful you are, the more you have control of your surroundings. That's why we need to become powerful, Naruto, so fools like them have no say in our future. Jiraiya had slowly gotten back up, rubbing his face as he signaled Naruto to approach them. "But seriously, Tsunade-chan, it's a pleasure seeing you again. Come on, let's catch up over a drink. The group made their way to settle down at the table Tsunade was previously occupying. As soon as they sat down, Jiraiya picked up a nearby saucer on the table as he poured sake into it. Twirling the flat cup around, Jiraiya set his sights upon the brunette who was sitting beside Tsunade. Shizune-chan, you're 21 now, right? Time flies. How has life as a nomad treated you so far? She is almost the same age as Ni-san. A plan struck Naruto as he schemed. Shizune smiled as she scooped her pig up, ready to answer, but Tsunade had decided to cut her off. Cut the crap, Jiraiya, I know you didn't track me all the way here to ask my apprentice about her life. Also, who's the kid? The woman finished off her question by rudely pointing at Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage. Nice to meet you, Ba-chan. A tick mark appears on the slug princess' forehead as she accessed Naruto with a death stare. Tsunade then leaned into the table as she shared a leveled gaze with her fellow blonde. Listed kid, Hokage is a fool's job. Here is some advice, kid. That village will eat up all of those who are precious to you, and becoming Hokage won't put an end to that either. If anything, chasing that dream will bring death upon you for certain. A sullen look overcame Naruto. The amount of death and insane scenarios he had experienced in the past 4 months testifies to her statement. Who have you lost, Ba-chan? Naruto asked with his lids covering his eyes halfway. Tsunade's eyes widened as she shifted her attention to the sake bottle before her. Pouring the alcoholic beverage inside her sake cup. Why should I tell you, brat? Tsunade sneered as she took another sip of her alcoholic beverage. To help me understand, so I don't repeat the same mistakes you have. Jiraiya had let Naruto steer the conversation for now. More communication could be the key for getting Tsunade to cooperate with returning to the village. The medic Nin had set her sights upon the table now. With a nod, she had seemingly come to agree with Naruto. I once had a lover named Dan at one point. Like you, he aspired to become Hokage. But in the Third World War he had been killed on a mission. I also had a little brother, Nawaki. After taking a sip of her sake cup, Tsunade let out a broken smile. You both share such a vibrant smile, you know. He was only a genin when an explosive seal took his life. Naruto had been captivated in Tsunade's story, listening word for word. Loss must go hand to hand with becoming a shinobi. I must become stronger to protect my friends. She makes it seem as if loss is inevitable. Like a cycle. Do you have what it takes to break that cycle? Naruto had once again decided to not answer the fox, pondering if he really does have what it takes to break that vicious cycle. A loud cough from the toad sage had brought Tsunade's attention. Tsunade, the reason why I'm here is because sensei wants you back in the village. The sake bottle in Tsunade's hand shattered. Shooting up from her chair, she stood defiantly, ready to flee at any moment. No way in hell am I going back. Sensei will label you and Shizune nuke Nin if you refuse to comply. Tsunade's hand shot out and grabbed Jiraiya's collar, pulling him so close that their faces were only 4 inches apart. Sensei would never dare threaten me with something like that. Tsunade, you can't turn your back to the village forever. We need you. Sensei fears for our future, and frankly I do also. Suand looked at Shizune. While she herself could handle becoming a nuke nin just fine, she worried about her. Tsunade also had not wanted to quarrel with her teammate. It was already bad enough Orochimaru defected. Letting out a pained sigh, Tsunade had settled down. Very well. Shall we head back? Nay, what's the rush? The night is still young. Tsunade Heim. The Senju princess raised her glass to that, actually agreeing to one thing Jiraiya had said today. 000. After the two seniors had wasted the night partying away, they had grown tired and needed to rest. So here we were in the hotel room Tsunade and Shizune had rented on the previous day. Tsunade and Jiraiya had been so drunk that they fell asleep instantly. Both Sanin snoring obnoxiously loud. Now it was just Shizune and Naruto. Said woman was grooming Naruto's hair while the blonde was applying finishing touches to his storage seal. Your hair is such an exotic color, Naruto-kun, did you dye it like this? No, my hair is gradually changing to red. Naruto had been slow and steady with his strokes, finding comfort in Shizune's womanly touch. Is this a seasonal change? In a way, sort of. Earlier Jiraiya mentioned that you were 28. Is that true? Asking for a woman's age is rude, Naruto-kun. Shizune puffed her cheeks as she feigned anger. If you must know, yes, I am 28. My older brother Kakashi is 27. Kakashi-san, I remember him. He was a year before me in the academy. But aren't you an Uzumaki? He became my legal guardian. One more layer of ink in the Jinchuriki was complete with his makeshift storage seal. Oh, how thoughtful of him. Shizune had been thoroughly enthralled with detangling Naruto's mop of hair. But he's always alone. In my opinion, I think he needs a lover. Shizune accidentally tugged Naruto's hair a little too hard. Naruto squinted his eyes as Shizune became a bright shade of red. The child had clutched in not messing up the sealing array. To him this had been a form of training. In his logic he will always be under pressure in battle, so it would be his best interest to get accustomed to it. Well, that's none of my business, and frankly it shouldn't be yours either, Naruto-kun. Shizune spoke with haste as she stopped playing with Naruto. Yeah, I guess you're right. Have you found somebody special yet, Shizune-san? You should focus more on that sealing, Naruto-kun. Playing Cupid would be a grave misuse of your time. Shizune stood up and went to feed Taunton, refusing to entertain Naruto any longer. But that didn't matter as Naruto had finally completed the storage seal. Yada. I did it, Kurama. You don't know if it works for sure yet. Retrieving a kunai from his pouch, Naruto had set it smack dab in the middle of the array. Applying chakra to the seal, the kunai vanished with a puff of smoke, successfully storing it in space-time. Naruto heard clapping behind him. Turning around, he saw Shizune supporting him from the kitchen with a round of applause. Naruto chuckled as he let out a big smile, proud of himself. 000. The return of Tsunade Senju had set ablaze a sense of celebration throughout the streets of Konoha. Civilians and shinobi alike partied throughout the day as they rejoiced the return of the Senju princess. Vendors have been working overtime as children littered and played without much supervision. Even the academy had been closed for the day. Paper lamps designed with the Senju clan crest could be seen decorating almost every shop in the village. Some elders had even wept once they heard the news, claiming that it was a blessing from the gods themselves. There was no telling how long the party would last as it was lively, and it was only the first day she had arrived. It seems your return has caused an uproar. Welcome back, Tsunade-chan. After welcoming back his lost student, Hirsuin set his attention upon Shizune. Welcome back home, Shizune-san. I'm glad to be back, Hokage-sama. Shizune blushed as she bowed to the cage, flushing at his praise. Sensei, can you explain as to why you would threaten me by labeling me as a fugitive in the bingo book? You know how I feel about the shinobi life. I retired for a reason. Hirsuin interlaced his finger as he laid his chin upon the bridge of his fingers, narrowing his eyes as he glared at Tsunade. Shizune, as of today you will be resuming ninja duty. Please stand by for future information. You are dismissed. Shizune had bowed one last time as she scurried out the office. With a snap of his fingers, all of the Anbu hidden in the room fled. Tsunade, there is a war on the horizon. Right now I won't issue you to go back on the field, but insist that you run the medic ward. War? No, sensei, I can't. Tsunade, I refuse to let the village that your ancestors had worked so hard to create be crumbled to the ground because of your lost loved ones. I lost my wife too, Tsunade. The village had taken her, but I still stand here protecting it to this day. A pregnant pause in the conversation drew out the tension between the two. Hiruzen finally let up his pressing aura as he leaned back into his chair. You have to let go, child. Dan wouldn't want you wallowing over him forever. You still have Shizune Jiraiya, and me. Fight to protect us, don't let your will of fire extinguish so soon. Standing from his seat he had gone over and embraced the slug princess in a hug. It took a while but Tsunade eventually gave in, returning the hug with barely any force. But sensei, my hematophobia will affect my line of work, it is going to be impossible for me to be medic. Breaking away from the hug, Hirsuen went back to his desk and retrieved an empty small scroll. You will visit the Yamanakas first thing tomorrow for therapy. After Hiruzen was done writing in the scroll, he walked over to the messenger hawk conveniently perched on the rim of his window. Inserting said scroll into the small pouch wrapped around its leg, the bird then fluttered off, delivering the message. Now let us celebrate the Senju festival. It's after all in your honor. A deep rumbling caught both of their attention as they looked outside the windows. Below one would see Jiraiya being chased by a mob of women. Gaki, why must you betray me so? That's for earlier Ero Sennin. One could also see Naruto keeping back, hoping from rooftop to rooftop, enjoying the fruits of his prank. A large sweat drop simultaneously formed on both of their heads as they spectated the scene. It's good to be home, I guess. Kaden. Yuki no Jutsu. Jutsu. Naruto. Biju talk. Naruto. Biju thoughts. Naruto. Character thoughts. Naruto. Regular speech. Determination. Firmness of purpose. Resoluteness. 2. The process of establishing something exactly by calculation or research. The following day in Konoha had been quite sluggish for the majority of the civilian market in Konoha. Due to the raging party yesterday, there had been a slight slowdown in pace due to all the fatigue. Of course, the shinobi side of the village had shown no sign of being affected. Speaking of shinobi, one could find Tsunade at the entrance of the Yamanaka clan compound. It was a rather large one, not quite as huge as the Hyuga or the now deceased Uchiha, but it was relevant to size. The Senju princess was now ready to start her therapy. To deal with whatever shrink her sensei had offered as the answer. Welcome, Tsunade-sama. Inoichi-san is expecting you at the main house. Would you mind if I escort you? A male clan member with honey blonde hair attributed with a jagged face had welcomed the Sanin. Tsunade nodded gently as she followed the Chunin into the compound. The aesthetics of the Yamanaka clan weren't formal like the Hyuga but more of a familial, comforting type. The patches of grass outlining the dirt road were certainly well taken care of. You know, this is my first time entering your compound in over 20 years. I must say your quarters are quite as beautiful as ever. Tsunade praised the compound as she greeted each clansman that crossed her path with a wave. They bowed to her as she passed by. Why, thank you, Senju-sama. The male Yamanaka must have been proud to get a compliment from a Sanin if the smug grin hadn't given it away. Coming to an abrupt stop, they had reached the main house. There stood Inoichi, the clean head, proudly awaiting the legend. Welcome, Tsunade-sama, please come inside. Inoichi was the head of Konohagakure's intelligence division. Inside of a person's mind was no strange place for this man. Dealing with trauma should be a breeze for the Yamanaka clan head. After entering the humble abode of the Yamanakas, they had come to a stop in their kitchen, greeting Inoichi's wife Nobuko, as she was boiling a kettle full of water. When they took a seat, she placed down steaming hot cups of tea for both of them. When Hokage-sama informed me of your fear of blood, I was quite surprised. The irony of it all must be very inconvenient for you. Inoichi had let out a chuckle at the end of his sentence. I'm glad my hindrance brings you amusement, Inoichi-san. Tsunade calmly lifted her beverage as she blew on it. My apologies, Tsunade-sama. If you don't mind, I would like to offer a bargain with you. The last Senju narrowed her eyes at the word bargaining. It only meant bad news when it came from the mouth of a ninja. And what is this trade that you offer? Tsunade's refreshment had almost spilled as she boldly pointed at Inoichi. We cure your trauma and in exchange you train my daughter. Empty laughs echoed throughout the kitchen. What makes you think I'll accept these terms, Inoichi-san? Last time I checked, fixing my trauma is a direct order from the Hokage. Also, I really don't have time for favoritism. Favoritism? You're really viewing this from the wrong angle, Tsunade-sama. Think of it as not favoritism but you helping the village by producing a fine kunoichi. Maybe a future legend perhaps. If Jiraiya-sama did it once, then why can't you? You're going to need more leverage than that, Yamanaka-san. I see. You know, my clan's flower shop has been gaining mass popularity recently. I believe the reason why might pique your interest. Tsunade raised her eyebrow as Inoichi got up to retrieve a purple bottle from his pantry. You see, recently our botanists have taken an interest in fermenting. One would say we actually mastered the craft. Inoichi poured the clear liquid into a cup, filling it halfway. The man then slid the glass of alcohol across the table. Try it out for yourself, your opinion is certainly appreciated. The slug princess had only taken a sip, but the bitterness had hit her like a swift hook. This brew was wickedly amazing. And the Sanin only took a sip, but she had already felt intoxicated, if only a little. This is the best alcohol I've ever had in my life. Inoichi sat down with the bottle, donning a gentle smile. Knowing he's got Konoha's legendary sucker in his grip. Accepting my proposal might be in your favor. You see, our recent batch contains a lot of extra bottles. A mistake, I reckon, will be repeated frequently in the future. Tsunade had not been surprised at the turn of events. After all, this is what Yamanakas do, they adhere to your wants and needs so naturally. Never underestimate their social skills, that's for sure. With her hands tied, Tsunade had no choice but to give in to her alcoholic tendencies. You have yourself a deal, Inoichi. Suan caught the bottle that he had flung at her. Oh, and Tsunade-sama, about your therapy sessions. Ino will be in charge. Tsunade's eyes widened as she stared at the Junin. You can't be serious. You can't just leave such an important task like this to an academy student. It would be best if you don't underestimate our clan, Senju-sama. A sensei learning from her student. Quite poetic, don't you think? After finishing his explanation, he nodded towards his wife. Without a word, Nobuki went to retrieve their child by yelling her name upstairs. Small footsteps could be heard from pounding against stairs, growing louder by the second. Also, I advise you not to drink during your sessions, it might hinder your progress. Inoichi gave one last piece of advice before he scooped up his daughter. Being in charge of the intelligence sector makes Inioki a busy ninja. Someone who doesn't have all the free time for his family. So it never takes much for Ino to enjoy her dad's presence. After twirling his daughter around one last time, the man gently set her down. Ino-chan, today is the day we finally begin training you in our family techniques. Are you ready? Ino nodded frantically as she listened to her father. Now that he finally trusts her enough for the clan's secret technique, she wouldn't disappoint him. Hai-tu-chan. You will heal Tsunade-sama trauma. She has hemophobia and she must overcome it. Ino then finally took notice of the Sanin casually sitting in her kitchen. Her jaw dropped as one of the famous Sanin stood in her house. Hello Tsunade-sama. The alcoholic hero blood ran cold. But she still managed to keep with the charades. Well, if you excuse me. Inoichi left the house silently, vanishing into the air like a snuffed-out candle fire. A pregnant silence fell upon the two for better of 3 minutes. He has got to be kidding. I will not tolerate this disrespect bestowed upon me. Inoichi, you're in serious trouble. Tsunade's calm demeanor held strengths beyond legends as she stared daggers at the academy student. Oh my god, what is a san? Breathe, no, this can't be real. Ino's legs felt weak as she gazed upon the Senju legend. The little girl could barely catch her breath. Fortunately for her, she finally found her cool. Tsunade-sama, it is a plea, your father isn't coming. The duo stopped talking as they both cut each other off. Tsunade hesitated before letting Ino go first. So you're really Tsunade Senju? Tsunade smiled. The one and only. Tsunade said idly as she leaned back into her Ino looked odd as she placed her thumb on her chin, striking a thinking pose. Wow. I have a question, Lord Senju. Ma, just call me Tsunade Ino-chan. Go ahead, shoot. Tsunade shot a finger gun gesture with her left hand at Ino. What made you finally return back to Konoha? Ino pulled out the chair her father was previously occupying and sat on it, resting her chin upon the back of her hand as she stared whimsically at the senior. Tsunade cupped her chin with her pointer finger and thumb, striking her thinking pose. I guess my will of fire was never extinguished. Stars formed in Ino's eyes as she gawked in awe. Were you by yourself? I heard that you had to be taken down by a whole squad of Junin. Tsunade gasped. I would never take down a fellow Leaf soldier. Tsunade contemplated, wondering if the information she was about to share was classified. Oh well, she was a Sannin. Whatever repercussions that came her way, she could surely deal with them. You know, Ino, it was actually one of your classmates that escorted me back here. Ino reacted comically as she almost fell out of her chair, sputtering out demands, requests, for their identity. Tsunade leaned back into her chair and she cupped her. I believe his name is Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto. No way. He's known for being the dead last. Underestimating that brat is a common mistake, Ino-chan. Don't follow the crowd. Ino had no words as she absorbed the information from Tsunade. Don't follow the crowd. Before Ino could get sidetracked about Naruto, the task her father assigned her came back full force into her. Up straight, Ino puffed out her cheeks and asked in the most professional tone the girl could muster. So do you freeze up at the mention of blood? A deadpan expression overcame Tsunade as the senior decided to indulge Ino by letting her play therapists. 000. Shizune was currently walking to the missions boards ready to be assigned her first official mission now that she's officially back in the ninja ranks. Instead of just only wearing her usual kimono, she now rocked an open Chunin flak jacket over it. She was being trailed by Naruto, Sasuke, and Gaara. The trio was perched behind a water tower adjacent to the building across from her. So she is Kakashi-san's new girlfriend? Gaara asked innocently, observing their interaction intently. Naruto snickered as he dispelled a clone further down that was trailing Shizune. Yep, ever since I told her about Kakashi on the mission, she has been interested ever since. Come on, she just entered the building. Let's move to the windows in the back. Entering the building, Shizune spotted Hatake Kakashi reading his iconic orange book, Ika Ika Paradise, as he was standing in a line of Jonin. I guess it won't hurt if I introduced myself. Shizune casually approached Kakashi, the copycat ninja himself. Kakashi Hatake, nice to properly meet you. You're Tsunade's apprentice, Shizune, correct? I hope you're accommodating to the Leaf well. Oh, the village is just like how I remembered when I left. You know, your brother Naruto was talking very highly of you on my retrieval mission. Kakashi quickly senses Naruto's chakra at the mention of his name. How flattering. Now excuse me, I have some students that need a lesson taught. Shizune sighed disappointingly as the gray-haired man walked off the other way. 000. Naruto, this has to be the dumbest plan you have ever made yet. Sasuke shifted in his crouching position as he used his Sharingan to read the adult's lips. Oh, be quiet, I know you're just as interested as me. You're already an accomplice, so it's too late to back out now. The grin on Naruto's face was the size of a dinner plate. So what's our next move? The new voice addition startled the trio, causing them to slowly turn their heads to the end of the branch. There sat Kakashi reading Ika Ika Paradise casually. The trio blanched before they quickly pulled their escape maneuver. Damn it, Sasuke. You were supposed to be on the lookout, quick, Gaara. After releasing their henges, Naruto and his posse scattered in different directions. A wave of sand blocked the Junin from seeing which directions they went. Kakashi looked on upon their escape with amusement. Even though I confiscated Naruto's smoke bombs, he still found a way to limit my sight. Yes, this is the initiative thinking they would need to survive in the ninja world. They're also improving on their stealth. This time it only took me 10 seconds for me to notice them. 000. In the academy we see Sasuke in a heated spar with the third Hokage. Hiruzen shifted back as he leaned away from a swift kick performed by the Uchiha. Capitalizing the Uchiha's imbalance for a split second, the old man's foot launched into Sasuke's stomach only to reveal that he hit a clone. A round of surprised gasp came from the audience. Hiruzen shot a glance at Naruto as he sidestepped a jab from Sasuke, twisting his body in the process. Gah! Sasuke's yelp of pain echoed throughout the classroom. Most of his fellow classmates cringed at the impact. Hiruzen had finished the spar with a well-placed axe kick on the back of Sasuke's neck. I think he knows that was your clone. Gaara itched closer to Naruto as he whispered his comment. He is the Hokage, Gaara. It would be a shame if he had not. Naruto leaned back against the wall. The current room they were in was completely vacant of furniture, except for the huge tatami mat on the floor. All of the students were up against the wall as they spectated the sparring match. Hokage-sama graced their class with a visit today. The man then ended up deciding to test Rookie of the Year. Sasuke approached the duo limping slightly as he held his neck. The last Uchiha decided to take a seat right next to them, refusing to release any grunts of pain. You overextended your last jab. That left you wide open. Gaara told Sasuke as he settled down. A humble, HN, was his response. The Sand Child had sort of developed a sort of running gag with the Uchiha to vocalize his mistakes. Gaara claims that it will strengthen his patience. Naruto claims that it's his best attempt at humor. The almighty Sharingan strikes again. Naruto rounded off his snide remark with jazz hands. Before Sasuke could even retaliate, his trusty fangirls were there to the rescue. The group of girls were led by Sakura Haruno, number 1 Sasuke fanatic. Shut up Naruto baka, you wish you could fight like Sasuke. Sakura got into Naruto's face as she jammed her pointer finger into his googles. He would be lucky if he even lasted a second with Hokage-sama. One of the girls in the group added her 2 cents. Naruto chose to step away from the group. Keeping in character had become drastically difficult as more days went by. Girls, please settle down. I'm sure whatever Naruto said held no animosity. Hiruzen's grandfatherly tone extinguished the tension instantly, easily catching the attention of the whole class. Sasuke, your performance was terrific. I expect more from you in the future. Sasuke nodded his head, not bothering to validate the Kage's praise. Naruto leaned into his fellow Jinchuriki and whispered. Gaara, guess what? Gaara raised his eyebrow to show curiosity. I finally managed to enhance the storage seal. Naruto pulled a piece of paper from his pocket and quickly scribbled down kanji, creating a seal matrix. Instead of it now just sealing objects with a pulse of chakra, the function is now continuous with a stream of chakra. In other words, you can now just seal all of your sand and not walk around with a huge container in the future. Gaara's eyes widened at the news, even though he refuses to use his sand on fellow classmates. It would be useful for future battles and training with Kakashi. Wouldn't the chakra intake for this be too much? Gaara asked as he took the seal from Naruto. Although Gaara was a Jinchuriki, the usual chakra cost for a storage seal would hardly affect him. But having that same cost stacked up for a prolonged time would definitely leave him exhausted within 2 minutes tops. Well, that's of course without tapping into his Biju reserves. I modified that also. A genin could even use this seal for a while and not get exhausted. Naruto's new project sounded promising to Gaara. In the distance, one Yamanaka Ino was observing Naruto fuss about his seals curiously. The scoop from Tsunade on her fellow classmate had really given her cold feet. She had been completely avoiding the class pariah, observing him from the background to see if the Sanin's rumors were true. Shockingly, Ino was sure that Naruto had caught her a few times, but he had never confronted her for some reason. LNO then brings her attention to the Hyuga heiress seating a row directly behind Naruto, staring longingly at her fellow blonde. Ino shuddered. No way in hell was she going to follow in Hinata's footsteps. Swallowing her angst, the girl turned on her natural Yamanaka charm as she approached Naruto. Hey Naruto. The blonde Jinchuriki turned around in a flash as a huge smile adorned his features. Hey Ino, what's up? Ino cringed as Naruto practically yelled at her with his greeting. But the girl furrowed her eyebrows as she noticed something off. He was just using his inside voice to talk to Gaara, but now he's yelling. Maybe she was over-exaggerating his actions and looking too much into nothing. But how could somebody continue with such inconsistency and ignore such obvious social cues when it's evident that he has friends to practice said social cues with? Ino's gossip tendencies would surely not let her give up on the enigma that is Naruto Uzumaki, no, not by a long shot. I noticed that you miss class a lot, why? Naruto scratched his head as he looked to the ceiling as if the answer was on the roof. The academy is boring. Plus I'm going to be Hokage one day, so this is a waste of time. Ino deadpanned as she placed her fists upon her hips. You know you have to pass the academy to even become a ninja, right? Yeah, so what? Ino decided to back off for now. She could tell that continuing on this conversation would only bring her a headache. Interaction with Naruto for such a long time might also ostracize her from her peers. As she was walking away, Naruto had let out a few words that caught her attention. You walk with a lot of purpose, Yamanaka-san. Maybe you should learn how to sneak silently if you're training to become a kunoichi. Oh, that settles it. Yeah, she wasn't done with Naruto, not by a long shot. 000. 3.5 years later. Early morning. Today was the day of graduation where the gang would finally begin their journey on becoming shinobi and kunoichi. On this bright morning, Hiruzen had gathered a few select elite Junin for a meeting. Said topic was discussion for the future of the latest generation. First, I would like to thank all of you for gathering here today. Now let's sort these graduates into teams, shall we? The aged Kage took a drag from his pipe as he shuffled through the academy student reports. I'm sure you will appropriately choose a capable Junin to cater the next Inoshika Cho generation well, Hokage-sama. Shikaku added in his 2 cents as he leaned against the wall. You should hold no worries, Shukaku-san, as I entrust them into my very own son, Asuma. Asuma raised his eyebrow, surprised by the news. We haven't discussed this, Hokage-sama. The irritation in Asuma's voice was clear as day. Oh, what's wrong, Asuma-kun? Is babysitting 3 genin too much of a task? Asuma retrieved a pack of cigarettes from his front pockets on his vest as he cast aside his dissatisfaction. Refusing to step down from his father's challenge. Of course not. Enough with your family quarrel, Sarutobi. Hokage-sama, we must move on to more pressing matters. My daughter needs a capable Junin to mold her into a fine clan head. Hiyashi Hyuga, current clan head of the Hyuga clan, had voiced his wants. Hate to agree with White Eyes here, but I too am concerned for my son's future. After Gishi's death, that boy has been driven. Sum also added in her comments. Her pack of dogs standing ready right next to her. After taking a glance at Kiba's and Hinata's graduation reports, Hiruzen placed the papers down. I have decided to assign Junin Kurenai Yuhi to lead Team 9 consisting of Kiba Inuzuka, Hinata Hyuga, and Shino Aburame. Hiyashi had voiced no objections, due to having already met Kurenai. Sum on the other hand was skeptical on the choice. The newly promoted Junin Hokage-sama. Surely you must be mistaken. To Kurenai's credit, the woman had not flinched at the targeted growls from the clan head's Ninken. In due time, you will soon understand how to place your trust in the Hokage's decision, Sum-san. The dog lady's back tensed as if she'd been slapped, slightly embarrassed from her unprofessional input. In all honesty, after reviewing all of these evaluation receipts, I must say, this generation contains the largest quantity of promising students than any other previous class in decades. Even a civilian this year holds promise. Selecting a single file from the stack, Hiruzen held it up to read. The only genin that graduated from a civilian family this year, Sakura knowledge, competent ninjutsu, yes, with talent like that she's surely to survive in this shinobi world. In all honesty, I'd say they would even surpass our current senior genin. Hushed whispers and murmurs once again spread the crowd of jonin. Team 10 is easily the strongest genin Team Konoha has at her disposal. For Hiruzen to make that bold claim spoke levels about his faith for the next generation. So who will this civilian girl be placed under Lord Third? Anko inquired as she kept cleaning her kunai with a dull white rag. Hiruzen took a long drag of his pipe. Well, of course. 000. Man, I hope Kakashi doesn't fail us like he did his other 5 previous teams. A sigh escaped Naruto's lips as he continued to read, Intermediate Level of Fuinjutsu, a book Jiraiya had lent to him on his 12th birthday. Today was orientation and their final day of school was about to start. Right now Sasuke, Gaara and I were all sharing a desk, waiting for Iruka to reveal the teams. Right now said Chunin had just entered the room shifting through papers. You really think those genin had a chance on the field? Not even one could notice when academy students were spectating their bell tests, Sasuke criticized in his usual bored tone. In their defense, Sasuke, we are really good at our, now official, job. Sasuke shot Gaara an aloof eye roll as he continued to stare forward. Before Naruto could add in his 2 cents, he was interrupted by his sweetheart. Naruto-kun, I see the dead last got some new threads. Ino Yamanaka, top kunoichi of the year, approached the group confidently. Ever since she became Tsunade's apprentice, she soared through the ranks. The only other female student to best her was Sakura, who got first place in studies. Instead of the bright orange jumpsuit Naruto used to wear everywhere, he now donned a very dark burnt orange long-sleeved jonin shirt. A light blue Uzumaki swirl was printed on the back right above vertical kanji saying, 9. His right sleeve was torn and singed. Naruto had wrappings spread over his entire right arm, with kanji printed on each bicep. For his pants he had black Anbu joggers accompanied by a metal chain attached to the pockets and black sandals. A Hittite the same color of his shirt was used as a bandana to cover his red hair. His left eye was still scared. I see you also got a new look, Ino-chan. Ino now wore a gray mesh shirt and over it a purple-colored kimono with short sleeves and white lining around the collars, which she secured with a white sash. Black skin-tight shorts were her undergarments. She also wore white arm warmers and white wrapping over her calves, which had 2 seals printed on her left, with black hair was loose as it reached down past her neck. Around her neck was a tied Hittite. Ino then turned her attention to Gaara. Gaara-kun, you also upgraded. Wow, your whole group really wanted to show off today, huh? Sasuke rolled his eyes as he turned away from the blonde. Sasuke now wore a blood-red short-sleeved shirt with a high collar, the Uchiha crest stitched on the both of his wrists. He had wrappings with seals on them. A black Hittite wrapped snugly on his right arm. Completing his outfit, he wore black Anbu pants with open-toed sandals, Shippuden sandals. For his belt buckle he had a tanto attached to the back of his waist horizontally. Gaara, still rocking a face mask, had his gray hair cut short with a messy top. He had a gray mesh shirt under a brown zip-up jacket with a sash that had 2 seals marked on it, tied around his waist. A pair of black pants with wrappings around his ankles completed by black sandals. Are you ready for your genin team, Yamanaka-san? Gaara asked as he calmly crumpled a leaf to dust he was holding. I already know who my teammates are. I don't think Hokage-sama would discontinue the Ino-Shika-Cho trio this year. Alright class, settle down. Iruka's yell silenced the classroom as everybody got into their seat. Ino left and went up a level to sit with Choji and Shikamaru. Okay, first I would like to start off by saying that I am proud of every genin that I see here. As of today you will start your shinobi career out on the field. Iruka then gave a long speech that none of us really paid attention to except Sakura. Naruto looked up from his book as he noticed Iruka started to name out the teams. Team 10 contains Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara, and Choji Akamichi. Your sensei will be Asuma Sarutobi. There was no audience feedback. Team 9 is in circulation. Team 8 will consist of Kiba Inuzuka, Hinata Hyuga, and Shino Aburame. Your Jonin sensei Kurenai Yuhi. Now Team 7 will hold Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno, and Sasuke Uchiha. Your sensei will be Kakashi Hatake. After Iruka finished assigning off teams he turned his attention to Gaara. Gaara Hatake, you have special instructions to head to the Hokage's office. Murmurs started to spur throughout the classroom. Alright, time for lunch, all genin must return here in 10 minutes. Dismissed. Iruka then left the classroom. Not soon after Gaara arose from his seat. Well, off to see what Hokage-sama has planned for me. See ya guys. Sasuke gave a nod as Naruto gave Gaara a high five. With nothing else to say, Gaara used Sand Shunshin to leave. Nearby students stepped back as they magically saw Gaara turn into a wisp of sand. Naruto turned his attention to the door as he noticed Kakashi arrive with 3 other Junin. He's early. Huh. I wonder what's the occasion. A small chuckle came out of Sasuke, as even he was amused. Sakura came up and swooned over Sasuke. Sasuke-kun, aren't you glad we're on the same team? It's almost like it's fate, don't you agree? Sasuke totally ignored the pinkett as he stared back at Kakashi. Kakashi let out a cough to grab her attention before he ordered all 3 of them to follow him. They set at a heavy jog to training ground 7. Kakashi assumed Sakura couldn't hop from rooftop to rooftop if her lack of endurance didn't hinted that. Note to self: teach her chakra control ASAP. Kakashi thought to himself right before he and his team arrived. The ever slowly sway of grass in the field brought upon a calming, waited for Sakura to catch her breath as she was wheezing on the floor. It's obvious that she was on a diet. What a project I have here. Kakashi grimly thought. Sakura finally stood up as she caught her breath. Okay, since I know 2 of you already, I will get to know Sakura personally later. For now you need to be tested for graduation. So here is the simple task, you have to take these 2 bells. Kakashi held up 2 silver bells attached to red string. He then tied them to his waist. Before time runs out on the clock I had set when I started this speech. Sakura looked to the side and saw another Kakashi place a timer on a log set for noon. Then he bursted into smoke. Alright. Begin. Sasuke quickly jumped next to Naruto as he started to debrief his plan. You keep Kakashi busy, I will debrief Sakura of the plan. Sasuke ordered as he jumped off to find the girl. Naruto nodded as he stood his ground ready to take on his sensei. Kakashi stashed away his book in the pocket of his flak jacket. Taking Naruto lightly is kind of dangerous after all. Getting into his stance, Kakashi rushes his student with no mercy. Naruto summoned 6 clones, sending them in front of him. Kakashi sent a sharp kick into the first clone's head, poofing it. He was then assaulted by a golden chain. Jumping to the side, a clone was there waiting for him. Kunai clone then made a swipe at the bells. Regaining his balance quickly, Kakashi axed kicked the clone's wrist, successfully shattering it. Using the cloud of smoke to his advantage, Sasuke shot out from the smoke, Tanto poised to biceps the Junin. Kunai met blade as sparks flew between the exchange of blows. Sasuke's Sharingan ablazed as he met Kakashi parry for parry, thrust for thrust, and swipe for swipe. The young Uchiha had kept the Junin at bay. Or so it had seemed before Kakashi flashed stepped behind the genin, immobilizing him into a grip. A Naruto clone tried to sneak a punch but was kicked in the face before he could do anything. Shuriken Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Sakura, who was still hidden in the trees, had been shocked. That's Naruto's jutsu. How is that even possible? From her perspective, she saw the red head turn 5 shuriken into an army of metal death. The sheer amount of metal stars was enough to block out the sun. Meanwhile, Kakashi casually observed the incoming rain of death with indifference. Lifting Sasuke into the air, Kakashi used him as a body shield. With his only free hand left, Sasuke formed a one-handed ram sign, exploding into a flutter of leaves. Of course, genjutsu. Kakashi mostly likely only had 1 second until the shuriken came raining down upon him. With seasoned reflexes, he squatted down and started a jutsu sequence. Doden. Mogaragakure no Jutsu. The Junin went underground at the last second, avoiding the mass of metal. Sasuke and Naruto regrouped with Sakura on her branch. We've about 9 seconds before he reemerges. Naruto exclaimed as his eyes were tracking their sensei underground. Sasuke nodded as he turned towards Sakura. When you see a chance, you will go into hiding. Once we catch Kakashi off guard, you will throw a kunai at the bells. Got it. Sakura gave an acute nod as she pulled out kunai from her pouch. Naruto nudged Sasuke as he threw a kunai at the ground. Understanding the message, the last Uchiha had leapt off from the branch. Sasuke spewed out an inferno on the marked spot. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. Sweden no Jutsu. Kakashi shot out of the ground, retaliating with a water bullet fueled by the nearby lake. Kakashi's water release easily trumped Sasuke's jutsu, extinguishing the fireball in an instant once they made contact. As a result, mist flooded the forest. Sakura took advantage of the ongoing chaos by jumping into the cloud of mist to hide her movement. Sasuke was utterly blind in this situation. His Sharingan couldn't see chakra due to the water vapor. The veteran Junin practically vanished into his surroundings as he made a beeline dash to Sasuke. The last Uchiha tensed his body, ready for the inevitable taijutsu match from his senior. Saving his teammate from a losing beatdown, Naruto leapt vertically into the air, throwing explosive kunai in front of Sasuke, detonating the tags. The tags were specially augmented by the Uzumaki. The genin managed to amp their explosive power to the max. Approximately 25% more. In conjunction, the blonde used his chains to yank Sasuke out of the blast radius. Boom. The 5 explosion seals transformed the terrain into rubble. As the smoke cleared, it revealed a tall rock wall falling apart. A kneeling Hatake using the slab of rock for cover. Shortly after, 3 kunai were flung to his feet, forcing him to jump backwards. Only at the last second had he sensed an incoming projectile from behind him. Twisting his body in mid-air, the kunai narrowly missed him. Instead, the knife managed to cut the bells loose from his hips. Turning around, the Scarecrow Man found Sakura halfway submerged in the lake, arms outstretched as a wry smirk adorned her face. Not only was she hidden in the lake, Sasuke must have also casted a genjutsu over her to hide her presence. Impressive. Kakashi stood calm as he witnessed Naruto retrieve the bells from off the ground. The Jinchuriki gingerly passed one to Sasuke, and a drenched Sakura who climbed out the lake. Well, sensei, do we pass? Sakura questioned with wide eyes as she proudly showed Kakashi her bell. Congratulations, my cute little genin. As of today, you're now full-fledged ninja. Now, if you excuse me, I have urgent matters to attend to. Meet here at 8 in the morning tomorrow. Yane. With all said and done, Kakashi fled the training field in a swirl of leaves. I guess I'll celebrate with him at home. Naruto turned his attention to his 2 now official teammates. He sweat dropped as he saw Sakura haggling Sasuke for a date. The latter wasn't even paying attention to her. Nay, Sakura, that's a good idea. We should get something to eat. I know I'm starving. Sakura turned her attention to the redhead, conflicted on her opinions about him. Before they graduated, Naruto was just a loudmouth dead last who couldn't even complete simple jutsu. But now the redhead was calm, level-headed, and abusing kinjutsu left and right. One thing she was still certain of is that her Sasuke-kun was still better than him, right? I don't want to go on a date with Yubaka. Naruto raised an eyebrow in confusion as he ignored Sakura's insult. No, I meant we should eat out as a team. Come on Sasuke, I heard Tuki has a new tomato soup dish. Naruto brushed past Sakura as he slung his arm over the Uchiha, persuading him as the duo walked back towards Konoha. Sakura looked at the pair in awe. It seemed as if the two were best friends. They never interacted like that in the academy. What's going on? Taking a pause, Naruto looked over his shoulder. Sakura, are you coming? Naruto gave her a warm smile as Sasuke still barely acknowledged her. With a stutter in her step, Sakura quickly joined the group. Finally, Team 7 made their way to Ichiraku Ramen. 000. Gaara Hatake was making his way to the Hokage office. The Jinchuriki was curious about his fate, as he was the only graduate in his class that was instructed to go to the office. What awaited Gaara was Hiruzen sagely smoking out of his pipe as he completed paperwork. A plethora of items littered his desk. The old man took notice of Gaara and greeted him with his usual grandfatherly smile. Gaara-kun, it has been a while. First let me congratulate you on your graduation. Gaara took a knee as he graciously accepted Hiruzen's praise. Thank you Hokage-sama. Hiruzen took a drag from his pipe one last time before he got down to business. Now I'm sure you're curious as to why I summoned you. You see, with the addition of you there was an uneven amount of graduates this year. Instead of forcing you into a 4-man cell, I present you another option. Remember, this is only possible due to your condition. I have control over Shukaku now Hokage-same, I can handle teammates. Hiruzen waved Gaara off in a friendly manner, dismissing the genin's worries. Leaning forward, he looked Gaara in the eye. Do you want to be hidden in the shadows or become a true genin? Finally taking notice of the items on the table, Gaara saw a Tanuki Anbu mask and a leaf headband laying side by side on the desk. What will happen if I stay a genin? I'll probably sign you into a mentorship, but Gaara-kun, your skills are unique on their own. You have the potential to survive in the Anbu. Gaara slowly approached the desk and took the Tanuki Anbu mask. The Jinchuriki placed it upon his face as he took a knee in front of the Hokage. Rise Operative Tanuki, I have a debut mission for you right now. It seems that Chunin Mizuki has become a traitor. Hunt him down and retrieve the scroll of seals. Gaara nodded with another word. The newly promoted Anbu officer vanished from the office. Shortly after, Hiruzen's door flew open as Danzo entered the office. The sound of cane echoed throughout the room as he humbly sat down. So which path has the Aikibi decided upon, Hiruzen? It seems he has chosen the path of shadows. I can only hope I won't regret this decision later. You're getting too soft, Hiruzen. This option was the most viable. Not only will the Anbu keep his identity hidden for longer, but his status as Jinchuriki will let him soar through the ranks. Hiruzen couldn't argue with the facts that Danzo provided. The old man could only watch as Gaara's story was unveiled. But had I made the right choice? 000. Sakura had been lagging behind her two teammates as she followed them through the streets of Konoha. The girl's mind was currently a mess because of the current situation she was in. On one hand, she finally got the chance to eat with Sasuke. But Naruto's presence had become an enigma and nuisance in one for Sakura. Her opinions on the blonde hadn't changed yet, but Haruno definitely noticed in his demeanor, attitude, and even vocabulary had turned 180. Sasuke shoved Naruto away with little strength. The blonde was laughing hysterically, but if Sakura wasn't so observant, she would have missed Sasuke's subtle smile. Since when has Sasuke and Naruto been this close? For the life of her, Sakura could not remember the two interacting with each other in such a friendly manner back at the academy. Finally, Team 7 arrived at Ichiraku's. The aroma of ramen broth had assaulted her nose before she even had a chance to enter. It was the first time that Sakura had ever visited this establishment, And if the rumors are true about Naruto's ramen addiction, then this certainly won't be the last. A teenage girl with brown long hair holding a notepad came to greet us. Naruto-kun, Sasuke-kun, it seems you two brought a new friend this time. Her joyous tone had been quite affectious, causing Naruto to greet her with his own smile. Sasuke-kun, who even is this hussy? No matter. No way could a ramen girl could even stand a chance with Sasuke-kun. A dark cloud started to form over Sakura as she stared daggers at Ayame. You bet Ayame-chan. You're now looking at an official ninja. Naruto smiled brightly as the bowl was served right in front of him. Itadakimasu. Naruto yelled before he dug into his bowl. Tomato soup was shortly passed to Sasuke right after. What would you like, sis? The brown-haired girl asked her with such a bright smile. Sakura then felt bad about her previous judgment. Shrimp ramen please. Sakura ordered with her own smile. So Sakura, do you mind if we help you become a better kunoichi? Me and Sasuke could really use a strong third teammate, you know. Naruto nudged Sasuke as he finished talking. The Uchiha hunk then turned his attention to me. Yeah, I might actually like you more if you become useful. Hearts bursted out of my eyes. Of course I'll let you help me, Sasuke-kun. Great, then me and Tem over here, will you pick you at 8 in the morning? You better be prepared because we don't train lightly. Sakura practically ignored the redhead's warning. The trio then continued to share a meal together before they bid each other goodbye. Well, until Sakura bid Naruto and Sasuke goodbye. Naruto returning her gesture and Sasuke once again flat out ignoring her. 000. The scroll of forbidden seals. You'd think that a scroll with so many kinjutsu would be so heavily guarded. Mizuki surged more chakra to the bottom of his feet as he raced through the forestry of Konoha as if his life depended on it. Which it did. A nasty grin spread across his face as his grip on the scroll tightened. And once I hand this over to Orochimaru-sama, I'll be granted power far beyond my imagination. Shuriken whizzed past by my head as I halted in my tracks. There, standing adjacent on the branch behind me, was Iruka Yumino, my old friend. Mizuki, what are you doing? You know this is treason to the highest of order. Is he seriously trying to lecture me? Damn, I was hoping to leave with no dead bodies, but plans never go perfectly. Fastening the forbidden scroll on my back, I crouched down, unsheathing my katana. Iruka, you know you can't defeat me. It's a real shame now that I have to kill you. Pumping chakra through my legs, I dashed quickly to impale Iruka in the chest. Instead of my blade searing through flesh and bone, it met grains of sand. Impossible. Iruka doesn't have a Doden affinity. Then a giant wall of sand flanked me to Mila. It went dark after that. 000. Hiruzen Sarutobi was impressed. Gaara on his first A-rank mission has managed to complete it under 30 minutes. There laying before him was an unconscious Mizuki. The traitor had a nasty bruise forming on his chin. Hiruzen then turned his attention back into Iruka's oral report. And then before Mizuki impaled me with his sword, Agent Tanuki-san managed to distract the traitor with a wall of sand on his left side. Before sneaking into his blind spot on his right, socking him in the chin. You went for the chin. Kakashi, who was also summoned by Hiruzen, added into the conversation. He then proceeded to feel around Mizuki's jaw. His jaw is still intact, but there is a lot of swelling. Perfect. Just like how I taught you. Kakashi gave Gaara an eye smile as he took Mizuki to Anko. Iruka was standing tall off to the side. The Chunin kept stealing glances at the rather short Anbu officer. Of course Gaara noticed but had not confronted him about it. Thank you for saving my life, Anbu-san. No problem, Iruka-sensei. Iruka raised an eyebrow at the use of the suffix. Neko. Hirsuen called for a soldier, and not a second later a female Anbu operative with a cat-like mask and long purple hair appeared next to Hiruzen. Hi Hokage-sama. Neko saluted before standing straight. Escort Operative Tanuki to headquarters. From now on he is now a member of your team, so please take him under your wing and teach him the basics. With a nod Neko approached Gaara and placed a hand on his shoulder. Silently the duo left in a leaf shushin. That Anbu operative is rather short, don't you think, Hokage-sama? The Hokage chuckled at Iruka's curiosity. Yes, he is Yumino-san, but I have no doubt that won't affect his job. Now that both of them were alone, the Chunin had started asking many questions. Most of the answers he was seeking were confidential information. Hiruzen had no choice but to send the Chunin home. Taking one last drag from his tobacco pipe, the old man looked over his view of his village. The seeds of the next generation have been planted. Only time will reveal how successful they'll grow. Kaden. Yuki no Jutsu. Jutsu. Naruto. Biju Talk. Naruto. Biju Thoughts. Naruto. Character Thoughts. Naruto. Regular Speech. Change. N. Someone or something different. Alter or modify. Something with something else, especially something of the same kind that is newer or better. Substitute one thing for another. Mebuki Haruno flinched as she accidentally touched the steaming hot pot of rice by accident. The housewife had been happily preparing dinner for her family, until her daughter had busted through the door. Her 12-year-old soldier could barely contain her excitement as she struggled to undo her sandal latches. Kazashi Haruno looked up from his paper intrigued. How was your first day on the job, my little ninja? Kazashi greeted his daughter in a playful tone as he set his paper down on the kitchen table. San, it was amazing. The pinkett put a pause on her actions as suddenly took a whiff of the air. It smells delicious in here. Mom, is dinner ready? Sakura finally kicked off her sandals before she took a seat at the dinner table. Well, actually, you made it just on time, dear. Mebuki had set down a bowl of rice with curry gravy slathered across. The Haruno family listened to Sakura's regale about her day for the rest of the night. I better go to sleep early. Good night, guys. The kunoichi then bolted upstairs and went straight into her room. Mebuki and Kazashi looked at the bowl of rice that was barely touched in silence. The girl was in ecstasy. Throwing herself into her bed, the kunoichi rolled around in her sheets. Sasuke-kun said he likes me. That moment had absolutely been the highlight of her day, even more than when she graduated. A knock from her window patio snapped her out of her musings. There her sensei was standing on her balcony waiting to be let in. Sliding open the veranda, she went to greet the Junin. Hey Kakashizens. Before she could even react, the pinkett was grabbed and flung to the rooftop of her house. Why did you do that? Sakura cried out frustratingly. Her instructor chuckled as he held up his pointer finger to the sky. Ninja Rule 3. A shinobi must prepare before it is too late to. Sakura sorely wished her teacher could have taught her this lesson a more gentler way. I had scheduled a conversation with you earlier today, did I not? Sakura gave out an exasperated sigh, then gave a defeated nod. Yes, I do remember you saying that. So what is it that you want to talk about, sensei? Sakura asked. Closing his infamous orange Ika book, the grown man's nature had completely. Now that his attention fully on her is unnerved the genin greatly. I've noticed that you put your body through unnecessary diets and on top of that, forego conditioning your muscles on your own time. Sakura, if you keep up with these unhealthy habits, you'll be destined to meet your demise sooner than your peers in your shinobi career. To be frankly honest, I don't even see you surviving a C-rank mission. Death waits for nobody and it is not picky. Heed my warning, genin, for if not, warnings will simply turn into predictions. A look of disbelief overcame Sakura. She had not expected such brutal from her sensei. Sakura held her head down to hide the shame in her. She remembered Naruto's and Sasuke's promise to help her progress. Reassured by how positive they had been about how she could become stronger. I may be the weakest link for now, sensei, but I have what it takes. The girl definitely stood her ground. She refused to be so blatantly underestimated. I can take on anything you throw at me, sensei. Kakashi's expression remained blank. His gaze barely affected the genin now. Kakashi retrieved his, and because of that the oppressing setting vanished too. Well, I'll make sure to put your determination to the test tomorrow, Haruno. You should go get some rest now, you'll need it. With nothing more to say, Kakashi bid his student farewell by delivering a two-finger salute. In a swirl of leaves the man vanished. Sakura, now abandoned on the rooftop, slightly started to panic. She desperately searched for a way to get down back to her veranda. Fortunately for her, she managed. 000. The next day, Blade collided against sand repeatedly as Yugao had been skillfully parrying bombardments of tendrils of sand, courtesy from Gaara. Currently the Anbu captain was in a heated sparring session with the young Jinchuriki. Yugao had been tasked to test his skills. A tradition every captain must partake in for every new recruitment. What she hadn't expected was for a 12-year-old to keep her on her toes. While the veteran admits that she was quite miffed after being informed that a genin was chosen to be a part of her elite group. All feelings of envy were quickly squashed as she somehow found herself fighting for her life. Creating two shadow clones, Yugao backpedaled away from the rookie. The two clones then circled around Gaara in tandem with incredible speeds, managing to outright flank him. While the real Yugao leapt into the sky to perform an aerial attack. Konoha Ryu. Mikazuki no Mai. Gaara chose to surround himself with a barrier of sand, successfully protecting himself. Yugao tried to retrieve her katana that was now embedded into sand. She struggled, but to her avail she failed. The minerals then started to enfold the blade at an alarmingly fast rate. Trying to retreat, the woman then noticed her ankles were ensnared by sand. Would you like to forfeit now, senpai? Gaara asked sincerely as he opened a small hole in his barrier sphere. Unknowingly taunting his purple-haired captain. Yeah, I guess that's enough for now. Yugao released a depressing sigh as she fell with the sand. Gaara then turned his attention to the rest of his squad that was spectating. Would anybody else like to evaluate my skills? Gaara questioned the peanut gallery that consisted of his fellow squad members. A sweat drop rolled down every Anbu member's forehead as they collectively responded by shaking their heads with vigor. The platoon quickly learned to gain a mutual respect for Gaara after witnessing the rookie solo their squad captain for 10 minutes straight. Senpai, Hokage-sama has issued us an A-rank mission. Hawk appears next to Yugao to deliver the message via leaf shushin. Hawk was a seasoned Anbu soldier who specialized in wind ninjutsu and covert missions. A rare affinity for a resident of the land fire. His light brown hair was slicked back and he only wore his armor plate as a top. Yugao then turned her attention to her fellow operatives, purple hair strands perfectly framing her face as sweat was cascading down her temples. All right, squad, you guys know the drill. 2 minutes to prepare and report to the Hokage. Yugao barked out orders as she wiped her forehead with her shirt. Not long after, we then find Yugao's platoon kneeling before the Hokage. The old man was shifting through a stack of papers, puffing away at his own leisurely pace. I assume that you have adjusted by now, Operative Tanuki. Yes, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen exhaled his smoke and gave a sage nod as he examined a scroll. I'm assigning you 4 on an A- rank mission. Your task is to locate and eliminate Aichi Yakuza, a wealthy business owner whose family pioneered the invention of chakra paper. I expect you to complete this mission without failure. The payload from this client will be a huge asset for the village. Hiruzen was met with silence as he kept an authoritative glance upon his soldiers. Quote, You are all dismissed. Hi Hokage-sama. The squad had then set out to leave at once. Already Haven packed essentials that could last them for weeks outside the village. 000. The Haruno residence basked in the golden sunlight, painting the building in a soothing yellow, oozing off a heavenly aura. This is what Naruto and Sasuke were greeted with as they arrived to pick up Sakura. Which one do you reckon is her window? Sasuke boredly asked as he rolled his eyes at the scenery. Naruto looked for the chakra signature that felt most familiar. That one. The redhead pointed to the window and balcony on the topmost left side of the building. Hopping towards the opening, Naruto knocked on the glass very loud, hoping to awake his teammate. Sakura answered the window, already dressed in her signature pink kippo dress. Good morning, Sakura-chan, have you already eaten breakfast? Sakura completely ignored Naruto as she tried to give Sasuke a hug. Good morning, Sasuke-kun. The Uchiha took a side step to the left, avoiding her affection. The Uchiha replied with a quiet, "HN," not even bothering to make eye contact. It's good to see you in such an eager mood in the morning, mind starting off the day with a run. Naruto started to stretch out his arms as he talked. You want me to run all the way to training ground 7? Sakura asked incredulously. She had a hard time believing that her teammate was serious. Naruto responded with a resounding, yup, accompanied by a playful peace sign gesture. Training ground 7 is at least 2 miles away from here. The only female member of Team 7 threw her arms into the air to exaggerate the ridiculousness Naruto was implying. Yeah, you better get to stretching then. Morning cramps are the worst. Naruto exclaimed as he bent over to touch both of his toes. Sasuke was seen completing his own set of stretches also. Not long after, Uzumaki and Uchiha jumped off her porch as they both started off with a full brown sprint down the street. Sakura lagged behind, clearly not as fast as the former two. Mebuki and Kazashi sat behind their living room watching the trio race into the distance. Her focus was mainly on Naruto as the redhead struck a certain nerve of nostalgia. He inherited Kushina's ridiculous hair color and face. What are the chances that our children were placed on the same team? Mebuki took a sip of her coffee. Sakura's father lazily turned another page in the newspaper he was reading. The man was enjoying his morning, he had no time to indulge his wife's commentary. 000. We are heading straight to Tanaka village. Since it's at the edge of the border, we must travel full speed. Yugao instructed as she guided her squad through the forest. Currently the platoon had formed a diamond formation. With Yugao leading, Hawk flanking the left, Gaara taking up rear for defense, and finally Kino, the final member of the squad, protecting right. Gaara had little to no difficulty keeping up with adults thanks to Kakashi vicious condition training. But boy did he sweat under the heavy gear. To think Kakashi moved around in this gear for all of his teenage years. Snapping out of his musing, Gaara took notice of the forest he so casually glided through. Counting this mission, this would officially be the second time Gaara explored the wilderness. The young Jinchuriki must admit that the forest infested with adamantine trees had somehow been comforting for him. These very same trees that were standing tall and basking in all of its glory were created by the Shodai. An impressive feat in Gaara's opinion. Minutes turned into hours as the platoon glided through branches, each limb shivering from every leap. Eventually Yugao called for a break so they could settle. Team Yugao now found themselves gathered around a small campfire Kino created. All right, troop, we shall reach our destination in about 2 hours. She retrieved a beige scroll from her back pocket, unraveling it and pointing at a portrait. This is our client Sendo Yakuza. A skinny young man with shaggy brown hair was wearing a very expensive-looking white, smiled confidently in the picture. His neck and ears were littered with golden chains and diamond earrings. Very wealthy. Narrowed his eyes at the mention of the last name. As the client, the target's son? Yes, the client is the target's son. Will that be a problem for you, Agent Tanuki? Yugao replied as she sent him a curious glance, not that anybody could tell under her mask. Instantly Gaara felt that completing this mission would be a hard pill to swallow. Memories of Yoshimaru's botched mission started to haunt him. Suppressing a shiver, Gaara tried his best to act professional. No, that won't be a problem at all. May I suggest that I complete this mission solo? Yugao shared a look with Kino and Hawk. A silent message was obviously shared between the three. Sure, I don't see why not. But you must rendezvous with the client first before anything drastic occurs on the mission. Yugao poked the flames with a stick, tossing the embers around. The light from the flames illuminating her Neko mask. Wait for the perfect opportunity to eliminate Aichi. No matter what, we cannot let his murder be traced back to Konoha, understood? Gara responded with a monotony. Hi, not breaking eye contact. Yugao stood up, Kino and Hawk mimicking her action. Alright, let's get this show on the road. The platoon had set out for Tanaka village. Right after Gara used his sand to suffocate the flames. The diamond formation was formed once again as the group set off into the trees. 000. Sakura had a headache pounding against her temples like drums in a marching band. The poor girl could barely lift her limbs as she sat in the shade of a tree. Currently she was observing Sasuke decimate a whole army of Naruto clones with only taijutsu. An exercise created by the redhead himself. Normally she would be gushing at the spectacle before her. But Kakashi had basically ran her to the ground today, removing any sort of energy she could muster. After she had finished her jog with her teammates, the man had come down and instantly beaten her into a pulp. A harsh activity that the Scarecrow man insisted would get her used to pain. It took longer for Sasuke and Naruto to fall by a vast margin, but they collapsed eventually. Yes, the first day of training had been gruesome so far, but she would endure. She had to endure, or else her teammates will leave her in the dust. Hey Sakura, how are you holding up? Naruto asked as he approached her, his large grin never leaving his face. One thing Sakura noticed about her redhead teammate was that he seemed to never get exhausted. A trait so valuable that it actually boggled her to no end on how she missed it when they went to the academy. The boy's stamina was absurd, he simply had no limit. I'll survive, drawled the pinkett with a tired smile. Naruto joined her under the shade as Sasuke approached them also. Cuts littered his knuckles as bruises decorated his arms. Quite alarming in her opinion, but the Uchiha moved as if it didn't affect him. I'm impressed that you didn't give up yet, to be honest. Sasuke added his 2 cents. Which was really surprising as the boy had not shared more than 3 sentences with her today so far. Sakura had no strength to gush over him as of now. So she simply responded with a smile. Of course, I can't fall behind you guys. A team is only as strong as its weakest link after all. Sasuke nodded as he nonchalantly leaned against the tree. And if I ever want to surpass Ino, I have to endure. Sasuke's eyebrow twitched at the mention of the gossip queen's name. Whenever the Yamanaka wandered into Naruto's and his training space, she would insist that he was her best friend. Yes, he was glad that she wasn't a fangirl of his, but damn did the blonde come with annoyances. She would constantly tease him about his healthy favoritism towards tomatoes. Can the man not have a favorite food? But Sasuke would never give into her bait, he knew better. For once he let a Yamanaka get into his mind, he knew that's when she would win. No way in hell would his Uchiha pride let that happen. You and Ino-chan are friends, Sakura. How come I didn't know that? Naruto asked with a mixture of curiosity and surprise laced in his voice. Suddenly the pinkett found her sandals very interesting as she avoided eye contact with her teammates. Ino and I used to be very close friends at the beginning of the academy. She used to vehemently stand up against bullies that would mock my forehead. Honestly, she was the closest friend I had at the time, and deep down I think I was hers too. But ever since she met Tsunade, that one day she became extremely different. She started to only talk about her future as medic nin. Eventually we grew apart. Her tunnel vision became increasingly hard for me. It didn't take long for her to become top kunoichi in every subject. She would still talk to me in class and be friendly, but she stopped hanging out with me after school. And now that we're fully fledged ninja, I don't think we'll ever have time to reconnect. Naruto slowly nodded his head as he listened. Sasuke had his eyes closed the whole time, but his teammates knew he was listening. His guard was never down after all. Sakura then raised her fist in the air, energy returning in her voice and the will of fire burned brightly in her eyes. But now that I graduated, I have the chance to be on her level. Better even. Sakura then locked eyes with Naruto, particularly the nasty scar on his left eye. Hey Naruto, if you don't mind me asking, how did you exactly get that scar of yours? Naruto looked at the sky, tracing his fingers along the damaged skin. When I was 9, I was beaten on my birthday. One of the villagers tried to gouge out my eye with a kunai. Sakura hadn't said a thing, expecting his response to be a silly mistake, not a survival story. This was the time where Kakashi had decided to step in. You are 100% correct, Sakura. After I'm done training you, you should be a competent chunin. Now that I noticed you finally have enough energy to move around, let's start on your chakra control. Sakura raised an eyebrow at Kakashi's words. I already unlocked my chakra, sensei. Sakura said. Is that right? Well, would you mind climbing that tree behind you? Sakura gasped. The concept of scaling walls with just chakra had never occurred to her that it was possible. Naruto, would you please show her an example? The Jinchuriki gingerly hopped up and then casually walked up the tree that they were relaxing under. The light blue flowing chakra covering his soles. All you have to do is send chakra to the bottom of your feet and the rest will work itself out. Naruto said with a grin as he backflipped off the tree. With an understanding nod, the Soul Kunoichi of Team 7 rose to her feet to tackle the task. The results were quite mundane. She managed to get it on the first try. Took me 6 hours to complete it and she just got it on the first try. Jealousy laced his voice as Naruto crossed his arms. Sasuke just stood there aloof, observing with his Sharingan. She must not have that much chakra in the first place. That could explain why she isn't struggling. Sasuke then added, unintentionally clearing any confusion on Naruto's end. Of course. 000. Team Yugao finally arrived at Tanaka village. Said civilization was located on the edge of Fire Country. Buildings grouped together infested the plain field, but the Anbu squad wasn't here for the village. No, they were here for the colossal mansion that was pooled by plantains. Twisted trees with brown leaves neighboring the building harmoniously. All right, Tanuki, head to the plantation. Kino, Hawk and I will be camping here. Ready in case things go south. Use your sand as a tower for the signal, got it? Gaara nodded as he created a sand clone that performed henge, disguising itself as Gaara in his normal genin attire. You have 24 hours to complete this assassination. Any second later and we're coming after you, understood? Kino said as he leaned against a tree. Gaara nodded as he set off. The silver-haired teen made his way to the mansion. The texture of the twisted trees were quite different from the adamantium trees he's been used to traveling on. The bark felt softer, almost as if it was withering. But the branches withstood his weight, quite odd. In the distance on a beaten gravel path he saw a horse carrying a young man with brown hair and quite some jewelry on him. Getting a better look, Gaara noticed that it was Sendo riding the stallion with men in samurai armor trailing him. Sendo Yakuza, Gaara assumed as he landed in front of the young man, presenting his mission scroll that was signed by Hiruzen himself. The Hokage stamp written on the bottom left corner of the page. You must be one of the Konoha shinobi I requested for. I'm sorry, but I was led to believe that there would be more than one of you. The diamond earrings reflecting light into the genin eyes as Sendo talked. My squad is on standby. This mission shouldn't be too difficult to complete. Sendo studied the silver-haired teen as if he was an item on sale. Judging his worth by his stance alone. Men, lower your weapons, this ninja will is an honorary guest of ours today. Tension in the air around the hired guard that were lined up behind him dropped considerably. Each soldier removed his hand from thy hilt. Sendo then turned his attention back to Gaara, his thumb placed upon his chin as a smirk dawned upon his face. You know my family rarely gets visitors on the ranch. This mission may be my only opportunity to practice my host skills for a long time. What do you say? Want a tour? Gaara could only accept the offer. It wouldn't be sensible to decline the client. Excellent, let's start by showcasing the lumberjacks. Sendo took the lead as he continued to follow on the beaten path. He eventually came to a stop at many underdress men hacking away at the twisted trees with axes that were in terrible condition. As a ninja, Gaara could tell the blade on each and every tool had been withered to barely usable. But each slave hacked away relentlessly. It was either that or get punished by the hired guard supervising them. One malnourished old man eventually collapsed. He did not get back up. These trees are quite special, you see. They're the only species of tree that can produce chakra paper. They also grow faster than any tree in the world, only needing a week to mature. Gaara could tell the boy had a passion for the conifer by the way he was immersed in explanation. It was like Sendo was in his own little word, describing fun facts about the tree. After a moment of watching his slaves work, Sendo continued on the path once again, itching closer to the mansion in every trot. After we chop the wood, we skin it and turn the bark into chips. After we turn them into chips, my workers will then batter the wood with water to turn it into a paste. Sendo halted his steed as he turned his attention to a group of slaves that were working diligently. Some were tired lessee punching bowls filled with water and wooden until their knuckles bled. Some were lucky enough to have a giant club. You humans amuse me to no end, exploiting members of your own race so ruthlessly just to create paper. You animals breed for violence. Shukaku's raspy voice echoed throughout the Jinchuriki's mind. Turning to his left, he saw giant men, most littered with scars or some type of wound, chucking the paste into burlap sacks. The product was then transported to the basement of the mansion. Smoke could be seen spewing from open windows and chimneys. The young Meishant led Gaara to a small elevator contraption on the side of the mansion. On his way there, the Anbu operative caught a glimpse of the inside of the basement. Men covered in dust and soot walked about smelling rancid. Majority of the slaves were coughing vehemently due to the fumes the machinery let off. The paste was placed into machinery that turned it into soggy parchment, which would then be put into bundles. Women and men alike were carrying bundles to their own elevator contraption. Gaara then rose to the top of the estate. What greeted him was a glass building. The air inside the clear dome had made the windows reflecting mirages. Opening the door, Gaara was blasted with a heatwave that reminded him of Sunagakur. The silver-haired ninja was disturbed at the sight before him. All of the workers were naked. Then again, their choice to forego clothing seemed reasonable for this heat. This is our greenhouse we use to dry each parchment. Then we cut the sheets up into fine little squares and voila. There you have it, chakra paper. Sendo took a pause in his explanation as he finally recognized the pure disgust upon Gaara's face. You ninjas must not be used to seeing labor of this level with chakra being so steadily available for you at all time, huh? You must understand that even if a sliver of chakra comes into contact with the tree, its properties will already be used and the chakra paper will be useless. Let's get out of here, shall we? I'm quite famished. You wouldn't mind joining my family for dinner, no? I would be honored to have dinner with your family. The duo then made their way to the front door of the mansion. Opening it, a tall chubby man with brown slicked back hair and a goatee on his face looked down upon us. Target. Aichi Yakuza. Sendo, I see you brought company. Simple observation that was disguised as verification. Father, I've hired a ninja from Konoha for the day. He will be joining us for dinner as per one of his demands. Gaara's face remained blank. Aichi, just like Sendo, patted guard down with his eyes. Like father, like son, I suppose. Very well. Hurry along now, supper is about to begin. Aichi then walked off towards the dining room, I assumed. As soon as his father was out of earshot, Sendo's mood quickly turned sour. That man will run the company to the ground at this rate. We lose hundreds of yen towards petty products like makeup, all thanks to my mother, which my father blindly ignores. Not only does he turn a blind eye on financial issues, he also doesn't care about any of my siblings. I'm the only worth in his eyes since I'm the heir to this business. Sendo kept his voice low, but the pure disgust in his voice had been heard. Gaara kept in tow with him as they ventured down the long hallway that was decorated with riches and portraits of old men. Every fossil you see on this wall are my ancestors. Previous owners of the business, just like father. All the way back to 4 generations. Sendo waved his hand as he continued down the hallway. Finally, he then took the door made out of white wood on his left. We finally arrived at their bodacious dining room. A 10-feet mahogany table stood upon a stone pedestal in the center of the room. Stairs made out of marble went directly to each chair. Aichi sat on top of his throne at the far right end of the table. A tall, pale woman dressed in an all-black dress took her seat next to Aichi, who sat on the far left of the table. A diamond-studded golden ring twinkled brightly as it clung to her ring finger. Gaara concluded that she was the mother. Next, a little girl that looked exactly like her mother took her seat next to her. In Gaara's opinion, the child wore an excessive amount of makeup. She also wore long white gloves that crept along her whole arm. Finally, a young boy who was chubby like his father but had blonde hair just like his mother, took his seat right across from me. Like everybody else, he also wore riches. Interestingly enough, unlike his other family members, he had noticeably dirt under his fingernails and calluses along his fingers and knuckles. Children, introduce yourselves to our guest of honor tonight. Aichi commanded as he raised his glass full of sake. The clear liquid swirling along the rims of the little porcelain cup. The blonde girl nervously arose slowly from her seat first as she graced me with an unsure smile. My name is Emmy and I'm glad you can join us tonight. At the end of her greeting, Emmy did a perfect bow as she sat shot back down into her seat. As if the chair would protect her. That was a splendid introduction, daughter. Aichi boasted, not caring for his daughter's speech. Emmy did not respond. The young boy across from me practically flew out his seat now that it was his turn. A proud smile that covered most of the bottom half of face told me that he was eager to introduce himself. Welcome, Shinobi-san. It is I, the one and only legendary Kai Yakuza. His grandiose behavior amused Gaara to no end. Splendid, Kai. Servants. I want my glass filled now. Aichi barked out orders as he leaned back into his chair. A slim man who was wearing rags came out of the kitchen holding a bottle of sake that looked suspiciously familiar. That bottle has the Yamanaka crest carved into it. Their brand must be Continental at this point. Father, I managed to chop down a tree all by myself today. Kai exclaimed excitedly as he swung his utensils in a chopping motion. Aichi made no visible reactions as he continued to scarf down his supper. You were supervised by a guard, right? A collapsing trunk could have easily killed you. Sendo admonished as he pointed his chopsticks at Aichi. That is a slave's work, boy. Focus more on your studies instead. Knowledge is what will get you far in life. Now, normally Gaara would see nothing wrong with a response like that from nobility, only if Aichi hadn't delivered it in such a dismissive tone. Kai picked at his vegetables as he tried his best not to look so distraught. How many bundles did we make today, Sendo? Aichi drenched his rice in soy as he stabbed a tentacle with his chopsticks. About 800, father. That's good, nay. All you did was lay back and yell at others. I actually did some work. Kai aimed his utensils at his brother as he called him out. Sendo was amused, but his father was not. Boy, what did I tell you about speaking over me? Kai did not look up from his plate for the rest of the dinner. The table had become so quiet that Sendo had decided to excuse the both of us. The two of us were isolated as we ventured into a guest room. Now was the perfect time for me to inform him of my plan. Sendo, once you have heard your father has been assassinated, you will spring into action. After you heard your cue, you will go to the front yard where you will see burnt limbs placed right in front of you. You will throw them right back into the woods and instruct all of your guards to barricade inside. Gaara backed off as Sendo showed him the room he would be sleeping in. All right, I'll be ready. With nothing more to say, the young man then retired to his quarters. Gaara's sand clone then laid in bed and pretended to fall asleep. The clone heard footsteps outside his door. They must be guards posted outside that were sent by Aichi. Crouching on a twisted branch a few yards away from the mansion was where the real Gaara was located. The undercover ninja stalked under the moonlight. He waited hours for the drunken business to be consumed by sleep. Sigh. I am not a hero. I am a ninja. Gaara grimly thought as he placed his tanuki mask upon his face. He shunshin right into the master's bedroom. Aichi had a room all to himself, so he slept alone. Such narcissistic behavior shall be his downfall. Using his chakra control, he walked all the way up to the ceiling so he could hang directly above the knocked out man. Unsheathing his white saber, he let go of his chakra and used the momentum of his fall to stab Aichi directly into his heart. Sand quickly covered his mouth to muffle his screams. His dead beady eyes stared right back into Gaara's cold cerulean off of him. Gaara made his way to the window. Tap, tap, clunk. Gaara noticed a tatami mat made quite a hollow sound as he stepped on it. Letting curiosity get the best of him, he moved the tile only to reveal an underground tunnel lit with torches. At the end of the pathway was a metal door that he used his sand to forcibly barge in. What greeted him inside was a spacious room that held a mountain of golden bars. What a fortune. I still don't understand why you humans value metal so much. At this exact moment, Gaara was glad that Naruto was an expert seal master. He retrieved a scroll specifically designed for sealing vast amounts of objects. Gaara stored the gold and then left the cave. Leaving the cave, he noticed he saw a silhouette at the little girl was Emi, trembling as she viewed Gaara in fear. Emi had a staring contest with the silver-haired genin as she silently mouthed a, "Thank you." The light from the hallway highlighted the bruises that decorated her arms. Bruises he wouldn't have noticed from before due to the gloves. The girl even had traces of what had seemed like a black eye, something he definitely would have seen earlier if it wasn't for the makeup. Observing even more, the bruises looked to be the size of Aichi's fist. Gaara left immediately, refusing to investigate even more. Sirens were set off as he jumped into the forest. He then planted an explosive seal on a tree. Gathering a couple of sticks, he transformed them into his own burnt limbs by performing henge. He tossed them out to the front yard, exactly where Sendo would arrive with his guards. Not long after, his sand clone found his location with a node. The chakra construct hopped onto the seal. An explosion was set off, making it seem like Gaara had died. Now that my father's is dead, I'm the boss of this business now. All of my orders are now final. Everybody, get inside and barricade the house. The first order I decree is that nobody speaks on this situation. If information that ninjas attacked my family, our reputation will be slandered. Sendu's voice echoed behind the Jinchuriki as he raced through. The escape seemed easy, way too easy. Soon enough he regrouped with Neko, Hawk, and Kino. So how did the mission go, recruit? Hawk greeted Gaara with a question. The mission was executed flawlessly. No trace of Konoha. Gaara informed them as his tanuki mask reflected the flames from the campfire his squad was gathered around. Good job, rookie. Alright team, let's go back to Konoha. Tanuki, be prepared to write down a full report when we reach the village. This time Gaara kept the flame going when they left, the hope the flames would spread and burn the twisted forest to cinders. 000. It was an early evening for Naruto in his living quarters. Currently we find the redhead studying seal scriptures with his clones. His concentration was distracted when Gaara entered his room via the window. Gaara said nothing. He did not need to, as his gloomy face communicated 1,000 words. Naruto stood still as he instantly noticed his friend was off. Before he could make his way over to his silver-haired brother, he was stopped in his tracks by Gaara shoving a piece of paper to his chest. Naruto observed the parchment mildly confused. Chakra paper. Chakra paper. Naruto decided to cut off the sentimental staring contest he was having with his brother, and chose to instead focus his chakra through the parchment. The piece of paper split into two, one piece being shredded and the other becoming soggy. Good, you have wind release just like me. Gaara spoke up as he tossed a scroll towards Naruto. The fellow Jinchuriki caught and unsealed the scroll, comically surprised by the mountain of gold that now vacated his whole living room bedroom. How on earth did you even get this much gold? Naruto asked incredulously as he and his clones gaped at the sheer amount of currency. Gaara let out a nervous chuckle. That information is classified, Naruto ni. Have you started on mastering your nature release yet? Naruto held his chin as he started to think. Nope. I've been too busy with seals and mastering my chains to worry about nature release. What's your idea? We should try using our wind release to grind all this gold into dust. Gaara picked up an ingot, and channeled some of his wind release into the metal. Only the tiniest of marks were made at the edge of the bar. This might take a while. Gaara commented in his usual monotone voice. Naruto and his clones got the gist of Gaara's instruction and copied his action. Like Kakashi said, manipulate your chakra into becoming sharp blades. Naruto thought to himself as he concentrated. After a couple of moments of each clone applying wind release on the gold, none of them managed to make any major differences. This might take the whole night to do. Naruto and Gaara shared a look as they nodded. For the rest of the night the duo had worked tirelessly on their nature exercise, barely managing to turn half of the ingots into dust. 000. Sakura had finally managed to arrive home in her beaten-up state. The 12-year-old barely could walk as she came stumbling inside her house. It was about 9 o'clock at night and Kakashi was waiting for his precious daughter to return. He caught her before she could land on the ground. Being a soldier for the village is no picnic ride, Sakura-chan. I remember walking home tired just like you. Kakashi heaved her over to the dinner table and placed her gently into her seat. Today was so tiring, Dad, but I can't give up. Sakura drawled out before forming a smile at what her mom placed in front of her. The same meal she had yesterday. Thanks, Ka-san. Itadakimasu. Mebuki chuckled as she heard the excitement in her child's voice. Unfortunately, Sakura was speaking at such low volumes it made her shout. Quite really surprised her next was when she saw her daughter scarf down the meal in seconds. I'm going to sleep early tonight. My body is aching all over. Sakura slowly rose from her chair as she bid her parents good night. Promise you'll take a shower before you go to sleep, all right, Sakura-chan? Kakashi yelled as his pride went upstairs. Both parents kept a steady eye on, carefully watching Sakura as she escalated. The girl then went straight to her bed. She felt like she was in heaven as she sunk deeper into her cotton mattress.